on journalism.
Wonderful.
Yes, good. There's a lot of folks.
First time I've seen some people in a while.
Hey, Angela. Hi, Michael.
Hey there.
Jeannie Sadler. Warren isn't on today.
Where's
Oh,
Steve?
okay.
Hey, Angela, it's Mary. Good to see you.
Hello. I didn't see Jeannie though. Where? She's not.
Yeah, she just said hello. Okay, there.
I have a question.
Okay, now it's recording.
I just.
Hey,
have a question. Is there a reason I can't send a private note to anyone besides the hosts?
You should be able to.
You should, if you go to the chat and click that little down arrow, you'll see everybody's names there.
All I
and
see
whoever
is
you want to
Richard, Benita, and Chevry. I can't see everybody else.
Yeah, it doesn't have everyone.
here.
Oh,
Doesn't
really?
have everyone.
Okay, I can see everybody.
There's no everyone? Yeah, everyone is there, but if I wanted to send a private message, usually you can.
No, you should be able to send a private message.
Yeah, I'm in the same situation, Wanda.
It's not letting us scroll. It's not letting us scroll this to do. I can see a few people, but I can't get to a private person and just do a personal thing.
Yeah,
but that's what we
I think
want.
it's
We
the
want
way it
people
was
to do
set
that.
up.
So
have to
on
do
the
it
side of
yourself.
yours, you don't see.
Oh yeah, no, I find out how you do it.
Scroll
It's,
down.
yeah, if you scroll down, it says to, and then it has everyone, and then it has a drop down menu, and the drop down menu are the individual people.
But that's only for the hosts. That's only for the hosts.
Yeah,
Oh,
only
really?
the hosts today. Usually we can do everybody.
I think it's a setting that you have to do when you
Well, he
set up the
didn't.
meeting.
I don't think he changed any settings. I'm not really sure. Oh my
This Zoom
God.
is a trip, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Wanda, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you,
Glad to
Barbara.
see you.
Congratulations,
Wonderful.
Wanda.
Wrote your book. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, we have that setting set to have the participants to chat. So I'm not sure what's going on. That setting is set for
Yeah.
chatting.
I don't know why it's not working.
Hey, Barbara. Long time no see.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Good.
Okay, you think we should start or what?
Yeah.
Yes.
My advisor is here. Okay.
Yes.
All right, we're going to start. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Journalism's Roundtable. I'm Richard Prince, and I write the Journalism's column, Journal-isms, on diversity issues in the news business, which is at journal-isms.com. And a special welcome to those who I hope, knock, knock, knock on wood, are joining us on Facebook Live. We have a stellar lineup today as we discuss how journalists can become successful authors. But we also have a stellar group of attendees, as you were just discussing. Since the primary purpose of our roundtable is networking, please take the opportunity to use the chat room to message those attendees you might want to contact or reconnect with. That's once we get that. Okay, Chevry says she fixed that. That's great.
No.
On Facebook
Richard,
Live, those
you
who
just started
are on Facebook Live can do the same by leaving a message in the comments section. So we're now going to go to our introductions. Since we have so many people today, we might not get to everyone on the first go round. Please be brief and tell us your connection with the book industry, whether you plan to write a book or have already written one, but be brief. So let's start off with, on my screen, I have Wanda Lloyd. So let's go to Wanda Lloyd first.
Hi, everybody. Wanda Lloyd, retired newspaper editor, author of the memoir, Coming Full Circle from Jim Crow to Journalism, and also newly released last week, and you'll be hearing from my co-editor, Tina Macarons, and I about this, Meeting at the Table, African-American Women Writing on Race, Culture, and Community. We are so excited. We look forward to talking to you about that.
Hey, Cynthia is next.
Oh, hi, Richard. I have been writing fiction for a number of years, before getting into journalism. And I published a novel, I suppose 3 years ago, called Turn On, Tune Off Myself. And I'm in the process of sending work out, but also getting work online on my website, which is cynthiaadinakirkwood.com.
Okay, Gene Meyer.
Hi, Gene Meyer, former Washington Post reporter and editor. I'm the author of 3 books, most recently Fight for Freedom, the African American Soldiers in John Brown's Army. Right now, we're trying to get a young adult edition published, and I'm also working on a memoir. And good
All
to be
right.
here.
Dr. Reynolds.
I have 8 books. But,
Oh my goodness.
the latest is My Life, My Love, My Legacy, Coretta Scott King. Remember, I wrote the first unauthorized biography of Jesse Jackson.
I still have that one.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course,
And Still We Rise.
Yeah, I forgot about that one too. And then, I won't shut up.
That's right.
One second, Richard, I need you to call me. Please put yourself on mute. Chevry, can you finish going through the introductions, please?
Will
I
do.
need you to call me, Richard. Put yourself on mute.
Okay,
Thank
let me get.
Okay,
One
I'm
second.
going to start with Neil Foote. Hi, Neil.
Hey, how's everybody? Good to see everyone. My connection, I haven't read a book yet. I've contributed some chapters to some textbooks, among other things. But one of the things I do here at the University of North Texas Mayborn School of Journalism is we host the annual Mayborn Literary Nonfiction Conference. We were all virtual this year, this past October. We bring together authors, writers, journalists, and storytellers to talk about writing and the storytelling experience.
Hey, thank you. David Honig. You're muted.
Here we go. I'm David Honig. Hello, everyone. I'm President Emeritus of MMTC and Chief Counsel for the NAACP in Florida. I've written a few books, some movie treatments, a biography. The most recent book is this one, Universal Broadband Adoption, How to Get There and Why America Needs It.
Okay. Delaney, JP Delaney.
Paul Delaney, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Paul Delaney here. Greetings to everyone, especially to old buddies, old Neil, Sam, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Good to be with you today.
Okay. Did he ask Angela Dotson? Did you go already?
I did not. I'm a recovered newspaper editor, formerly New York Times, former executive editor for Black Issues Book Review. I'm the author of Remember the Ladies, Celebrating Those Who Fought for Freedom at the Ballot Box. And most recently, I wrote the introduction to Jailed for Freedom, a first-person account of the women's militant fight for women's rights. That came out this year. I'm an occasional ghostwriter. I frequently edit other people and write book proposals, and I'm recently getting into voice acting.
Okay. If you're if you've written a book, raise your hand. Okay, Dana Kennedy.
Hi, everyone. I'm so pleased to be with you. I'm Dana Kennedy, the publisher of the SNS imprint, author of A Journal for Jordan, and a longtime New York Times journalist.
Thank you. Hands again. Tina McElroy, and I've read her books. Okay, go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, I'm Tina McElroy Anza. I am a former journalist right out of Spelman College. I was an editor and a writer. And then I switched to novels, which is what I always wanted to do. My most recent novel is Taken After My Dear, which is published by my own independent publishing company. And like Wanda, my co-editor of Meeting at the Table, African American women write on race, culture, and community. We're very proud. This is hot off the press.
Okay, other hands, raise your hands again. Okay, Mia.
Hi, everyone. So I wrote Green Wedding, which was a self-help book about how to hold eco-friendly celebrations, and that was published by Stuart Tabori and Chang, and it was a coffee table book. And then I wrote Stepdog, which was a humorous memoir about my husband's dog, and that was published by Putnam's. And I did that while working at the New York Times. I was a reporter there for 27 years, and now I'm a communication strategist at the Brennan Center for Justice at NYU.
Okay, Karen Houston.
Hi, everybody. I'm honored to be with this august group and some of my friends. I won't name them all. I'm a retired TV news reporter. My last job was at WTTG Channel 5 in DC. And here's my new book, Daughter of the Boycott, Carrying on a Montgomery Family Civil Rights Legacy, just out in the spring. It's out as an audiobook and an audio CD coming out later this month. Glad to be here.
Hands again. Book writers. Lauren.
Hi, the University of Georgia Press just published a book about a trip I took with two Medill School of Journalism students. I was dean there, around the country interviewing Americans about issues of race, gender, sexual orientation, and other identity, hot button identity issues.
Okay, thank you. Ellis?
Yeah, Ellis Coase, former CEO of the Institute for Journalism Education. I've published 12 books. 2 came out this fall. One is a history of the American Civil Liberties Union. The other is a book on free speech in America called The Short Life and Curious Death of Free Speech in America. Have an American History coming out next year.
Okay, hands again. Marquita Poole. Can't hear you. You're muted.
Hi, I'm a retired senior producer from CBS News, Sunday Morning. My journalism class collaborated on a book called Inside the Upheaval of Journalism. And so I was a contributor to that. This was in sort of a look back and a commemoration of our 50th anniversary of our graduation from Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism in 1969.
Okay. Mackenzie, I'm not going to call you Allison, but can you hear me? Go ahead.
Yes, John's going to go. He's the book writer.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm John X. Miller. I'm a longtime newspaper editor. Now I work for The Undefeated. I'm also, I'm also ordained and licensed Baptist minister, and I wrote a book 4 years ago called Praying It Forward, Your Fervent Prayers. It's a book for Christians on the power of prayer. And given where we are now, I'm working on a second edition of it, which should be out sometime next year.
Hands again, please. Okay, Sam Fullwood. You're muted. I can't hear you. You're muted.
I'm Sam Fullwood. I'm a recovering journalist turned public policy analyst at the Center for American Progress. And thanks to one of our speakers today, Faith Hampton Childs, I published a memoir back in the 90s. And more recently, I did a collection of columns that I wrote at the Cleveland Plain Dealer during my my time there in the 2000s.
Okay, Carolyn Brewer.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you. I'm Caroline Brewer. I'm a former editorial writer and newspaper columnist. I have also written several children's picture books, and most recently I wrote a children's adventure novel, Darius Daniels' Game On. So it's a book with more than 10 forms of poetry. It's about an 11-year-old boy who gets stuck in a video game, and it's lots of fun for children who are really learning to read. Thank you.
How about Todd Stephen Burrows? I thought I saw your hand.
Hi, I'm Todd Stephen Burrows, 35 academic publications, which includes about 12 to 14 book contributions, journal articles. I've written 4 books. And as of this morning, I'm in negotiation about trying to get 1 to 3 books published about Mumia Abu-Jamal. But my real goal is to be like my hero, Wayne Dawkins.
Okay, hands again. Okay, Jacqueline Jones.
Hi, I'm Jackie Jones. I am Assistant Dean for Programs and Chair of the Multimedia Journalism Department at Morgan State School of Global Journalism and Communication. And I have a book called Taking Care of the Business of You, 7 Days to Getting Your Career on Track.
Okay, any more hands? Any more writers, authors? Wayne Dawkins, Mary.
Thank you.
And
I'm
then
right here.
Sturgis. Okay.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I am a professor at the Morgan State University School of Global Journalism and Communication, and I am the author of the new books, Emmanuel Seller, Immigration and Civil Rights Champion. He is the most important legislator of the late 20th century you probably never heard of. So you need to get this. Also published the same day in October is the paperback version of City Sun, Andrew W. Cooper's impact on modern day Brooklyn. He is the 1987 NABJ Journalist of the Year. He is my mentor, and he is also the person responsible for Shirley Chisholm's election to Congress. He created the congressional district she was able to run for. I'll just hit the button on the other stuff I've done. I don't want to eat up any more oxygen. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Curtis.
Mary C. Curtis, columnist for CQ Roll Call and host of its Equal Time podcast, contributed to a book that's just come out of essays, Now What? The Voters Have Spoken, Essays on Life After Trump. Another one that's coming out shortly, Covering Politics in the Age of Trump, in negotiation to write a book with a public figure and working on my own memoir.
Thank you. Ingrid Sturgis.
Hi, Ingrid Sturgis, Assistant Chair, Associate Professor at the Kathy Hughes School of Communications at Howard University. And I wrote my first book in '97, which was called The Nubian Wedding Book. It's now out of print. However, I still get emails from people who use the book in their weddings. I've also edited 2 books. One is Aunties, 20 Writers Celebrate Their Other Mother, and another one called Are Traditional Media Dead, which is looking at what's happening in journalism currently.
Okay, did I miss anyone? Book authors? No, not that.
Yeah, I'm over here. This is Jesse Washington. How you doing?
Good. Go ahead, Jesse.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Inspiring to be amongst these writers. My name is Jesse Washington. I write for the Undefeated novel Black Will Shoot. Came out a few years ago, and out on Tuesday is I Came as a Shadow, which I co-wrote with the late John Thompson, his autobiography. Thanks.
Okay. Well, since Richard isn't ready yet, let's start with everybody else who hasn't written a book. How many book author hopefuls do we have? Anyone? Any book hopefuls? Okay, go ahead, Jess.
I'm Jean Sadler, retired journalist and public affairs director, Wall Street Journal, Time, and Council of Governments. I'm currently working on a memoir based on my mother's life. Almost done, but haven't finished yet. So I look forward to the wisdom of all you authors.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, go ahead, Ron Taylor.
I'm Ron Taylor. I'm the copy editor at the Washington Informer. I'd like to say I was a retired journalist, but I owe too many people money, so I got to keep working. And I'm working on, I've edited 4 books, and I hope to write one myself.
Okay, go ahead, Shirley Carswell.
Hi, everyone. I am leaving Howard University this semester. I've been teaching there journalism along with Ingrid for the last 7 years. Before that, I was at the Washington Post for about 25 years in different roles, and am leaving now to go join the Dow Jones News Fund as the new executive director in January. So I have a book in me, and I would love to hear from our esteemed guests about how to get it out. Thank you.
Congratulations on your new position, Shirley.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Any? Okay, let's go with John Yearwood, and then Matt Pierce.
Hey, I'm John Yearwood. I'm an editor at Politico, and actually this month a member of the jury for the United Nations Plural Plus Film Prize. Let's see, I want to write a book. Been thinking about it for a while about my years of being a foreign correspondent, traveling and working, particularly in Africa and other places around the world. Some great stories to tell. So I'm thinking about that, and be interesting to hear some ideas of how to go about doing so.
Okay, go ahead, Matt Pierce.
Hey everyone, I'm Matt Pierce. I've been a reporter at the LA Times for 8 years. I just wanted to say how grateful I am to be invited here and to be among this incredibly accomplished group. I'm also the president of the Media Guild of the West. It's the brand new news guild local in Los Angeles. I was one of the founders of the union at the LA Times. We're very active out here, and we bargained a contract recently that included some contract language on books that everyone might be interested in. So I just want to say thank you for letting me come.
Okay, Richard, are you here?
I'm here, but just give me about 3 or 4 minutes more.
Okay, we're going to talk books then. We're going to talk more books.
Well, no. Okay, what I'm going to do is we're having trouble with the Facebook Live, so I'm going to let all those people into the Zoom meeting.
Okay.
So they will have introductions as well.
Well, okay.
Hold on 1 second. Meanwhile, we can. Well, no, hold on 1 second. Everybody's introduced himself or herself.
Well, all the book writers, book hopefully, not everyone else.
All right, well, let's get the people who haven't introduced themselves.
Okay, let's go with Amy. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's all good. Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Yanneman, Assistant Professor of Journalism at Northern Kentucky University. And I just signed a contract for my first academic edited book volume, Perceptions of East Asian and Asian North American Athletes.
Okay.
Glad to be here.
Yvonne Roman.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, it's Yvonne Raman. I'm a journalist, freelance journalist and writer out of Washington, D.C.
Okay. Eugene Meyer, did you go?
He's already gone.
Already gone.
Okay. All right, I'm just trying to see who didn't. Chuck Stevens.
Hi, I'm Chuck Stevens. I am a freelance writer and editor, formerly with Bloomberg News and the Wall Street Journal. I'm the author of several books. I just haven't typed them up yet.
Okay. I'm on the next page. Faith, you went. Did you go?
No, I didn't actually.
Okay.
I'm Faith Childs. I'm the president of the Faith Childs Literary Agency. We represent about 45 writers, and I've done this for about, I'd say 35 years. In the 10 years before I was a literary agent, I was a lawyer. And we're still actively acquiring books and clients, I would say selectively. And I see many old friends out there. Hello, Sam. Hello, Calvin. And I look forward to today's discussion. I'd like to thank Richard for inviting me, and I think there's a lot to discuss. These are very exciting times.
Okay. Rebecca.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to hold it here and get back to those folks later on. I just let in, or at least gave the meeting ID to the people waiting on Facebook since we had technical problems there. But in the meantime, we're going to continue on schedule, and I wanted to first, is Lisa here? Lisa Matthews? No? Okay. All right. Well, we're going to go to Shirley. Now, many people know Shirley Carswell from her days as Deputy Managing Editor of the Washington Post. Others may know her from her teaching at Howard University. And then still others might know her when she was treasurer of the Washington Association of Black Journalists. And others may know her from other things. But now she's on her way to the Dow Jones Newspaper News Fund, where she's going to be the new executive director. And we want to toast her and congratulate her. So all those with something to toast with, please, let's do so.
Cheers.
Cheers to Shirley.
Cheers. Cheers.
Yes.
Cheers.
Now, Shirley, we want to hear briefly what you're going to do in this new job.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you all for the well wishes. I've been bombarded and it's been amazing. All these Dow Jones interns are coming out the woodwork. And so that's my first thing. I'll say, if you had anything to do with the Dow Jones News Fund in the day, please reach out to me and let me know. Because we're definitely looking forward to more networking with alumni who are all over the world and in very high positions. So I'm really, this really does feel like a great position for me. The Dow Jones News Fund, for those of you who may not be familiar, is one of the oldest journalism internship programs and has been around since the early 60s. And, you know, it has a really good track record, but it has expanded some in recent years, but it has not really changed in the last 50 to 60 years. So one of the things I want to do is try to, you know, infuse it with some new ideas. And I have to give a shout out now to Linda Shockley, who has run it for quite a while and done a great job. I'd like to focus on the lack of Black males, Black and brown males actually, who come through the program. In recent years, it seems like those numbers have dropped. And that's not unusual because that's the way journalism schools are for the most part. I know certainly at Howard, that's the way it was. Many more women than men. So I want to try to purposely target, or not target, but pay attention to the Black and brown males. Also want to look at, there's, you know, all these new nonprofit news organizations, and that's a challenge for us because the way the program works is that the students, we find the students, we vet the students, we train the students, and then they go, we find news organizations to hire them for the summer. And so as the number of newsrooms has shrunk and the ability for them to pay for interns has shrunk, we also have that challenge of many more kinds of news organizations, including nonprofits, but you know, nonprofits don't necessarily have the money to hire. So we're trying to find more news organizations who want to hire our interns. And that's, you know, enough for now. I think I haven't started yet, so give me a chance. But I do look forward to talking to many of you and hearing your ideas for how to keep the program as strong as it's been and even better. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Shirley. Let's see, I wonder, I guess maybe we should just go to our next segment, in which Wanda Lloyd will be in charge. So Wanda, would you take it away with your two author guests?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Congratulations, Shirley. I'm so proud of you. So happy that you're doing that. I mentioned at the beginning that I wrote my memoir, Coming Full Circle, From Jim Crow to Journalism. And I'll tell you, I went on this project reluctantly. When students at Savannah State University started asking me about writing my story and other people, and I would tell my story just orally to people, people would say, when are you going to write this story? You know, you need to write a book, you need to write a memoir, you need to share your experiences. And I was reluctant. I thought, who cares about my story? You know, it's my story. I didn't really think anybody would care. But the more I thought about it and the more people talked about it, I was convinced that this really was the time to tell my story. And I set about doing that. And so my friend and college roommate, freshman year roommate, Tina McElroy-Ansa, who's on the Zoom session with us today, ended up being my writing coach. She was kind of a rah-rah coach, not an editor, but a coach. And she was one of those who convinced me that this was an important thing to do. And so when I got into it, I sent her the first 2 or 3 chapters and she read them. She said, okay, this is good information, but you write like a journalist. I want you to stop it. You need to write like a nonfiction author. And so that was the challenge. And so I went into it with some help and support from other people in the industry. I talked to other journalists about their writing and how they got it done. And as soon as my book was finished, I found myself in a position where people were calling me saying, oh my goodness, you wrote your story. How did you do that? How did you get it published? Did you have an agent? How did you find a publisher? How did you find the discipline to get it done? Those kinds of things. And I'm thinking, I'm a novice at this. So, I'm not sure I can give you all the right answers. And when I got to the end and I was looking for people to write blurbs that would go on the back of the book, one of the people I reached out to was Karen Brown Dunlap, who is the president emeritus of the Poynter Institute. And I just asked her to read the galley for me and to write a sentence or two. And she came back at me with this message, and she did write a wonderful blurb, but she said this, and this is really what convinced me how important it is for journalists to tell our own stories. She said, the major lesson I learned from my doctoral dissertation on the Black press of Tennessee was that no matter how important editors or publishers were, no matter how much they achieved, they were largely forgotten in a generation or two if no one wrote their own story. I'm glad you've written yours. And so I was having a conversation with Richard over a period of time that, I think it's important for all of us to tell our stories, and important to write books as well. We are writers and that's what we want to do, but it's also important to tell our own stories. And so this is kind of my mission now, to work with other journalists. Whenever they call, I answer the call, I give them what little advice I have. One of the people I called was a gentleman in Tuskegee, Alabama, Fred Gray, who is the attorney that represented the Montgomery bus boycott. He was the attorney for Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. And he introduced me to one person. He introduced me to his niece, who was on the call, and I'm going to introduce Karen in just a minute. But he also confirmed for me something that I was exploring, and that I didn't have an agent. I tried to reach out to dozens and dozens of agents, and being a novice, I probably wasn't doing it the right way, but I did not get an agent. And so I sort of went the other way and said, okay, I'm going to try to go straight to a publisher. And I was reading Attorney Gray's own memoir about working in the civil rights movement. And I called him and said, I noticed that your publisher is someone that I know in Montgomery, New South Books of Montgomery, Alabama. Tell me what that relationship was like. Tell me if you think they're a good publisher, if they give you good editing. And he recommended them. And so I did end up having New South Books in Montgomery as my publisher, but he also introduced me by phone and email and texting, and however we've gotten together, we still haven't met, to his niece, his brother's daughter, Karen Gray Houston. Karen has written, as she introduced herself, Daughter of the Boycott. And I asked her to be here today to talk about why she thought it was important to tell the story of her father and her family and the role they had in the Montgomery bus boycott. So hers is not her own memoir, but it is a story about her father and that role. And so I want to call on Karen first, just to ask her to tell us why she thought it was important and how she got the story, got it started. So Karen, if you will move forward.
I will do that. Wanda's my new buddy. We're talking on the phone. We're following each other and what we're doing because we're new to this and it feels weird. But I had to write the book because it's really a tribute to my father, the late Judge Thomas Gray, and my uncle, Fred Gray, the civil rights attorney, and other leaders of the Montgomery bus boycott. There are a lot of unsung heroes and sheroes who really, put their lives on pause for this really important fight for racial and social justice in Montgomery in 1955. They really opened up doors of opportunity for me. I mean, I feel like I would not have had a career 41 years as a radio and TV news reporter in Boston, New York, and DC, had they not fought the fight that they did those many years ago. Now, my uncle wrote his own book. He wrote a book called Bus Ride to Justice. And he talks about the Montgomery boycott in the kind of detail that I can't really get into because he was there. And then my father, who was an organizer of the boycott on the Montgomery Improvement Association board. And 5 years before the boycott, he led a protest march against a case of white police brutality in Montgomery that a lot of people don't know about. And so he died of cancer before he could really get too far in the book. My dad did. And so it was as if he had, thrown down the gauntlet and I picked it up. I had to write the book.
All right.
So Karen, tell me this, you're a journalist, you were a broadcast journalist for for your career. Well, how was that transition for you going from broadcast journalism or just from journalism to writing and finding an agent and publishing a book for those who are looking to do something like that?
Okay, there's, like I tell people who are looking for a job in TV news, there is no formula. Like Wanda was called my uncle. I early on had approached 2 publishers, and they were very interested initially, but pretty soon they said, not so much. And I knew I had to find an agent, and I didn't know how to do it. There's a book, I forget the name of it. It's it's a resource book that has the names of every agent in America. And I went through the book. They'll tell you what genre they're looking for, And so I took the book and I started going through it, and I found a name of someone I knew. And I said, let me call her. And I called her and I said, look, I have a book proposal. I'd gone to some writing workshops, and all the authors I knew said, you need a book proposal if you're writing nonfiction. And I also have an actual manuscript. I'd written several drafts. And she said, send me the manuscript. And the next day she called up and said, hey, let's do this. I don't know if that's going to work for everybody, but that's the way I did it. And it's hard to do this. This whole thing is difficult. I thought I was a journalist. I'd been writing news for 40 years. I could go out, interview some people, do some research, sit down and write a book.
The book that someone Wayne Dawkins put in the chat, it's Writer's Market. He thinks that's the book you were. I used an online resource, and I don't remember the name of it, but there are a lot of online resources. You pay a small amount of money for an annual fee and have access to the names and all the genres of the agents. And so there are lots of resources out there to help you find an agent. So that's actually good advice. But do you think that, well, tell us how you found an agent. Tell me that.
She was in that book.
Oh, okay.
She was in the book. And so I called her, and she, wanted to get involved. And so she looked at the manuscript and liked it, and then said, okay, let me see your book proposal. And she looked at the book proposal and said, okay, we need to tweak it. Rewrite your first 3 chapters. So I rewrote the first 3 chapters. And the main thing, if you're writing nonfiction and you want to get published, people care. The publishers want to know more about your marketing and promotional plan than almost what's in your book. You can almost write a book that's not that interesting, but if you have a plan and a platform and they think you can sell books, you might get published.
Yeah, I found that to be the case with my agent. I had a 60-page book proposal, and the one thing that stood out to them was the marketing plan. Not just that I had a plan, but also that I had relationship with so many different groups of people, journalists, of course, and other organizations that I belong to now or have belonged to in the past. The fact that I had connections at different universities, those that I attended, as well as those I had worked at. So it seemed like they were interested in that vast network that would agree to have me come and speak and perhaps sell books on their campuses and do some speaking there. So that's really good. Karen and I have Montgomery or Alabama as our connection, because I was executive editor of the newspaper. That was my last newsroom that I worked at. And because Karen is from Alabama. So someday we're gonna get to actually see each other, right? Because we're one state apart now.
And I'll tell you this, as I was doing my book research, I also wrote for the Montgomery Advertiser. I joined a civic organization during my research to see if I could get people to point me in certain directions. And one day the person speaking to this group was the executive editor who followed you, Wanda, Tom Clifford.
Yes.
And I met with him and told him that I was working on a book. He tried to hire me. And I said, no, I've done that reporting thing. And he said, well, you can make a contribution to our opinion page, Alabama Voices, because you're a native of Alabama. And I think that was very helpful to me in the process.
That's great. That's great. I'm going to now move on to my second project. It's actually my third, but that first one was so long ago, I don't really talk about it that much, but Meeting at the Table, African-American Women Write on Race, Culture, and Community. So Tina McElroy and Ansa and I were roommates at Spelman College, freshman year roommates. We went through all our journalism classes together at Clark College, because Spelman did not have journalism, but Clark did. And I see my friend Ron there. He was in school, in classes with us. Ron Taylor. And Tina called me in June and said, hey, how you doing? She lives in St. Simon's Island, Georgia. I live in Savannah, Georgia. She said, hey, how you doing? I said, I'm not doing well. This was right after the death of George Floyd, and we were all just kind of going through it. And I said, I'm angry, I'm depressed, I'm just not happy. I feel frustrated. I can't do anything. We got COVID. I can't go anywhere. I'm old, so I'm not going to get out there with the young people and do the protesting. Even if we didn't have COVID, I got arthritis. I don't feel like walking, protesting. So we started talking about the fact that people were calling us, mostly white people, saying something like, oh my God, I had no idea that this racism that you've been talking about all these years in your conversations about diversity, that this racism is as bad as it is. Now that they had seen George Floyd literally dying on camera, the death of Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, and all this was going on in our world. And so Tina and I started talking about, well, what can we do? What can we do as journalists and as writers? And that's how we came up with this book, to reach out to African-American women, some of whom are names like Keisha Lance Bottoms, some of you know Dr. Sheila Brooks, Karen Hawkins, who is with the Chicago Reporter, Vashti Murphy McKenzie, who is the first female bishop of the AME Church, Anika Noni Rose, the first Black princess, Imani Perry, some of you probably know Peachy Wimbush Polk, who is the mother of Wiz Khalifa. I had to tell my daughter who that was. I had to ask her who that was. I didn't know who Wiz Khalifa was. She was like, oh my gosh, you know the mother of Wiz Khalifa, the hip hop star. So we started talking about this. This was June 14th, and I'm gonna ask Tina to talk a little bit about the process that we went through. But our main goal was, because of what was going on in 2020, we wanted to get a book out this year. And I said, my experience in publishing my memoir is it took a year after I submitted the manuscript to actually get the book in my hand. And Tina said, Tina, take it from there. What did you say when I said, how can we get it done quickly?
I said, oh my goodness, I have a publishing company. What are we even thinking about? From that moment on, and thank you very much for having me on. From that moment on, from that day on, it was on. We started with the idea of June 14th. We had the conversation. We came up with the idea. And as soon as we thought of books, we said, okay, well, what will we include? We said, well, book of essays of African-American women. It was just so organic, it just like an onion. It had lots of layers. And we came up with things immediately. But the process, as Wanda said, was over 4 months, which is just unbelievably short time. Even our printer tried to talk us out of aiming for 2020 and took us through it, but we were determined to do it, and we knew we could do it. Black Girl Magic ain't nothing but work, and that's what we did. We got to work, and so we said, well, okay, what about essays? And then we got up to a really heady territory where we could sit down and say, well, who do we want in this book? And we just thought about the women writers, the women activists, the women that we knew in our lives that had so much to share. It's not only to the white folks who really are the ones who really want to find out something, want to know what's going on in our lives. Who are we? What is our culture about? Why do Black women run, to get out the rain, so their hair won't get wet? We need to know that, but we also felt that they needed to address in some way what was going on right now, what it made us, Wanda, decide to do the book, that this was the time for answers and for clarity and for enlightenment. And so we got to work. First we reached out to our contributors. Wanda and I are total opposites, but fortunately we just meld just like that. She goes this way, I go that way, and we meet in the middle. I call it our superpower. But instead of fighting about our differences and having them, butt heads, Wanda and I had worked together a little bit on the publicity for your coming
full circle. Yeah,
full circle. Thank you. I get them both mixed up. As Wanda says on her Twitter account, who writes 2 books in 1 year? Who does that? Only Wanda Lloyd. So we started in June 14th. We started collecting our, our contributors. I reached out on like Twitter and Instagram. I hit them up there, and Wanda wrote really formal letters, which explains how different we are. But we got the women that we wanted. We got a number of turn downs. Ava DuVernay said, onward. I just can't put another thing on my plate. And that was a problem. No one said no to the idea. Everyone was just so busy, which kind of leads me to the next thing. One of the things that I learned in switching from journalism, everyday journalism, to writing novels, writing fiction, which is even a bigger, I think, jump than from writing, from working with a newspaper or working in news to writing nonfiction. But it's still a change, and it's still a challenge. And one of the things that I learned that I think everybody on the panel and everyone listening, can learn from, and that is, as you send your work out, don't take it personally. Be a smart person, be a smart author who has a story, or who has an idea, or who has a manuscript. First, you want to go to the people who will accept it. Don't send your manuscript to somebody who says on their website, not accepting manuscripts right now. Don't take it personally. I mean, just don't go to them right now. You go to the next person and the next person. So Wanda and I had experience on the publishing side as well as on the media side. And so we used all of our connections, and asked everybody, and just got to work. And we decided, what parameters we wanted for the book. And we wanted people to be transparent. We wanted folks to give some kind of path into the future, not just what happened in the past and what's going on now, but what can we do to change this? What else did we ask?
Well, Tina, I was going to also say, as writers of books, I'm a proponent of mentoring. I did a lot of mentoring as a journalist. I still do for young journalists. And so having you as a mentor was very helpful. So when you say, don't take it personally if you get turned down, if you can't find an agent, I think it was very helpful to me to have someone to just bounce all that off of me. So you can, I could, at the end of the day, I could call you and say, oh my God, I heard from an agent who said, no, this is not what I want to do. And you could really read between the lines and say, look, this just isn't what they want to do. Don't be dissuaded, just keep moving. And then you sort of sent me in another direction. So I would say, I think we need to end, because Richard gave us a generous 15 minutes, Richard, and hopefully we'll have time for some questions. But I want to say, for those here, find someone who can sort of pull you along, can help you, somebody who's available to talk to you. Most of us as journalists, when young journalists or aspiring journalists call us and ask our help, we always say, oh yeah, I can help you, let's talk Monday night at 6 o'clock. And we're very generous with that. We need more people in publishing to be journalists. And one of the things you said to me was, I don't find people in publishing, at book publishing, as generous as people are in journalism. Does that sort of hold true?
May I throw something in there?
Yeah.
I found writing workshops to be helpful, and one in particular, the Hurston Wright Foundation, which works with emerging African-American authors. And I took some classes. They're taught by some amazing published authors like Will Haygood, Ralph Eubanks, Marita Golden. And those were people who looked at my work and gave me some encouragement. So I found that very helpful. And
Neil Enriquez, who's the executive director of that foundation, is supposed to be with us today.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And expect rejection. I mean, I got it all along the line. Even after my agent said, okay, we're going to do this, and she farmed my book around a whole bunch of publishers, including some that I said put on the list. And when she came back and said, oh, they all said no, and I just was heartbroken, she said, don't think about it. We're going to send out another round. And she sent out another round, and she came back with a, oh no. And I thought, okay, here's what I need to do. Maybe just self-publish. And that's why, people have a hard time publishing. Maybe I should do it myself. And she said, nope, we're going to find you a publisher. And she eventually did.
Tina, you want to?
Yeah, I want to say something very quickly, and that is that I encourage all authors who are thinking or who have published a book and they say they're self-published, is why don't you start a small publishing company? Why don't you start a small independent publisher? You are if you're self-published, you've already started an independent publishing company, and there are perks that come along with that we don't have time to talk about. But that's something that I encourage people to do instead of self-publishing, is start a publishing company, and then you might be able to publish somebody else. You can pass along the things that you've learned.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you. I want to thank Tina and Karen. I want to know, Richard, do we have time for a couple of questions now?
Yes, we have 5 minutes for a couple of questions.
And there's a lively conversation in the chat, so people are giving great advice. I wonder if somebody wants to either jump in or raise your hand for a question, with a question. Someone asked the question, does it cost a lot to publish a book? Tina, you want to take that? I think it probably said the answer probably depends, right?
I was just going to say it depends. If you got some money in the account, it's good because you have somewhere to start from. There are fees that you have to pay. You get your Library of Congress and your ISBN number, and so those are just business things. But you have to do that if you quote unquote self-publish as well. So, I mean, but publishing a book is a lot of work. The only reason we were able to publish Meeting at the Table within 6 months is because we had Wanda had me and I had her. We had, co-editors who were working all the time on the publishing side, working on the, business side, working on the editing side. We were able to split the essays, so I didn't have to read originally all the essayists, and Wanda read half the essayists. I read, she had hers, I had mine.
Went back and forth.
And then we crossed over at the end, so everybody read. So those are things that can, that can speed it up. You have to have boots on the ground. You have to have people there to work for you, to send out emails, to do all of that. And you want to look professional. And the whole thing, as we know as journalists, if we are judged by our writing. We're judged by that image that's there. And so you want the book to be professional. You don't want, you don't want it to look like, it was done. As Wanda and I say, we published the book in 6 months, but we don't want people to think, oh, that looks like that was published in 6 months. So, we had to work really hard to make it look professional as well. And,
it's interesting. We live, 80 miles apart. We had not seen each other until maybe 3 weeks ago for 2 years. Mm-hmm. So we did everything on Zoom every day. We were meeting on Zoom. We were editing on Zoom. We used Google Docs to share documents. All our essays were edited on Zoom. Right. Just the two of us, and sometimes Wanda would jump in, and it was great. So, and I will end with this kind of funny story. At the end, we were co-writing the acknowledgements. And I sent Tina a short outline of the people that I thought we ought to acknowledge. And it was really short. It was so short that we had trouble making a whole page out of the acknowledgements.
No, what happened is I have to tell you, I called Wanda. I was writing it and she had sent me something. And I said, I must be forgetting somebody. It's so short. What is this? So I called Wanda and I said, Wanda, why is our acknowledgement so short? She said, we did everything ourselves. That's pretty much how we did it.
Okay.
But,
so, yes, Karen.
You guys are talking about the publishing end of it. There's, writing a book can cost you from the beginning. I mean, for me, I was in Silver Spring, Maryland, and my book subject matter was mostly in Alabama. So there's travel cost, equipment cost, it costs money. And then you get to once I get a book contract, will I get an advance? You might get some money. I mean, unless you're Michelle Obama or some of those folks, you're not going to get a huge amount of money. So writing the book can cost you money.
It certainly cost me on the promotion side. Mm-hmm. I got some fees for speaking, but I still had to pay my expenses to travel. Right. The only thing about COVID is that we went into a virtual book tour, and so didn't have to do those expenses anymore. Yeah. Last thing, Tina, and then we're gonna turn it back over to Richard.
Oh, well, I was talking about the expenses. I said that's one reason that people look for a contract and an advance to be able to pay for those expenses. Because, as you say, especially for a nonfiction book, it takes a lot more, a lot more money. We do have a website, and we are looking for donations. Down South Press is open to donations. That's the only reason we got as far as we are. The only reason we have this book is here is because of donations of actual money, as well as work and time working on the book.
I'm gonna
I did put Down South Press .com in the chat, and I'll put it in again. And I also put your email address for Down South Press in the chat in case people want to do that.
Which is, I must say, at this time, not accepting submissions. But that's only because we're so busy with this book, and I don't want your work sitting in a slush fund and we don't have anybody to read it. So we will put on our website, and that's what you should look on most websites. Are they accepting submissions? You don't want to waste your time and your money and your heart, going to someone who just at this time is not looking at anything.
Promo for me, www.karengrayhouston.com to find out everything about Daughter of the Boycott.
You might want to put that in the chat also.
I'll take care of that. And I also
very good, very
my
good.
website for Coming Full Circle. I'm putting all of that in the chat. Thank you so much, Richard.
Well,
And if
thank you,
y'all have
ladies.
more
That was
questions. Reach out to us personally.
all right. Thanks again. All right, now back to the introductions. Who hasn't introduced himself or herself? Everybody is we're good.
Nope.
Okay, that's great then. All right.
Okay, I haven't actually.
Okay. Oh, Nichelle.
Hi.
And Steve Gray. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Nichelle Smith. I'm the enterprise editor of Racism and History at USA Today, the editor of our annual Black History publication, and the architect of our 1619 project. All the writing that we did for that project, especially about Angela of Jamestown, made me think about writing a book, and some people have suggested that I should. So I'm just here soaking up all the information I can, and thank you.
Okay, Steve Gray and then Rima.
Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Gray, head of content for tech at Facebook. I run a team of journalists that have a bunch of websites around artificial intelligence and other aspects of tech. My background is at Time, Fortune, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, and I'm really glad to be learning from y'all today.
Richard, I haven't done anything.
Go ahead. Okay. Oh, Calvin.
Yeah. Hi, Calvin Reed. I'm a senior news editor, Publishers Weekly. Been there for a long time. But I also write, I write about African-American publishing, but I write about general news in the book publishing industry. And I am the co-host of a weekly podcast on comics and graphic novel publishing, which is kind of my thing. So.
Okay, well, you'll be at one of our presenters in the next segment, so that'd be good. Yeah. All right, did we get
Hey, Richard.
Rima? Yes. Oh, Rebecca. Okay. All right, go ahead, Rebecca.
No, Rima first, please.
Rima.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here. Thank you, Richard, for the invitation. This has been an honor to be around so many great minds and pioneers who've led the way. I'm Rima Bland. I'm the relatively new director of the Ida B. Wells Society for Investigative Reporting. So it's a pleasure to meet you all, and I've really enjoyed this input. I've taken a lot of notes. I don't intend to write a book yet, but now I'm feeling inspired. So really enjoyed this.
Okay. Don't forget that the purpose of us being here, one of the main purposes is networking. So that if you see somebody you want to, continue a conversation with, please don't hesitate to contact them in the chat. Okay, Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca Baker. I'm a news editor for Bloomberg Law. I'm a past president of the Society of Professional Journalists. Thank you, Richard, for once again extending a gracious invitation to me to attend these wonderful programs that you host. For the last couple years, I've bounced around a memoir about my days as a local news reporter with the working title of Killers, Crooks, and County Fairs. Stories of 20 odd, sometimes very odd years in local journalism. And because when I've told some of the stories of my local reporting days, they've actually made some people laugh, and they seem to be enjoyed. So I don't know if a wider audience would enjoy them or not, but I would definitely like to know if there would be a market for that.
Sounds good. Okay, Francisco.
Hi, yes, I'm Francisco Vara-Huerta. I am a training director at Investigative Reporters and Editors based here in San Antonio, Texas, and I love always attending Journalism's Roundtable, and so grateful for the work that Richard does and keeping us all connected about what's going on. There's just so much happening right now. So we just are relaunching our website, and we have, for the first time ever, a page dedicated to our diversity, belonging, equity, and inclusion efforts. We've been doing a lot the last 5 years, and so finally aggregated that. And prior to working in IRE, I worked for a couple of national publications covering education.
Francisco, we're keeping them brief.
Oh, thanks. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Let's see now, Mindy. Where are you, Mindy?
Right here. Hi, thank you. Mindy Marquez, 1 week into my second act as a VP and editor at Simon & Schuster, thanks to Dana Kennedy, and after 29 years at the Miami Herald.
Yes, here. Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Who have we not gotten to yet? Oh, April.
Hi, my name is April Simpson. I'm a reporter with the Center for Public Integrity. I cover racial equity and just started about 6 weeks ago. I used to actually be in DC and would gather occasionally with you guys in person, but I recently relocated to Dallas, Texas. So thank you.
Okay, very good. Well, welcome to Dallas, I'm sure some were saying. Allison Bethel McKenzie, one of our strategy committee members.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Rebecca. Hi. That's my girl. I'm Allison Bethel McKenzie, Director of Core Excellence for Report for America, and as Richard mentioned, I serve on the Strategic Committee for Journal-isms. I'm also on the board of JAWS and also on the board of the Ethical Journalism Network out of London. It's great
Very
to
good.
be here.
Jason Michelow Johnson. Have you?
Hey everybody, Jason Michelow Johnson in Savannah, independent photographer. I specialize in photos of authors for book jackets and documentaries. I did Karen's photo and also Wanda Lord's photo. Working on my 50-year retrospective book currently.
I thought you'd have, Soul Sanctuary to hold up.
Well, I just figured everybody knows about Soul Sanctuary. It was done in 2006 with the foreword by Gordon Parks, but you can Google it, Soul Sanctuary, Images of the African-American Worship Experience. And if anybody want to chat with me later about getting book deals, first book deal, mine was with Time Warner. Now it's Hachette Books, so I can share some insights as well.
Okay. All right. Wayne Dawkins writes, oh my God, 75 Hollywood Squares are on this call. Okay, Wayne. All right, Karen Berry. Karen, are you there?
Sorry, I hit the video instead of unmute. It's Karen Berry, copy chief for The Undefeated, and I'm here specifically hoping to persuade Dana Kennedy to be the keynote speaker for the American Society of Journalists and Editors conference in, Journalists and Authors conference in April. And also a little FYI, The Undefeated is planning a book imprint.
Oh, okay. Okay, who have we gotten everybody?
Me, Richard.
Okay.
Richard.
Oh, Rebecca, I didn't even see you.
It's okay. I'm over here in the corner somewhere in this mosaic of people. Anyway, Allison, big kiss, girl. She is a mentor. I'm Rebecca Aguilar. I am the new president-elect of the Society of Professional Journalists. We should all be proud because I'm the first woman of color to lead this organization and also the first Latina. And so this is a great win for all of us. Also, I'm the founder of Latinas in Journalism. It's a group, a virtual group on Facebook and LinkedIn with more than 2,400 Latina journalists. I realize that sometimes as Latinas, we have to connect the dots when other people don't open the doors for us. So it's a place on Facebook and LinkedIn where you can find Latina journalists if you don't have one in your newsroom. So look around. And if anybody wants to collaborate with SPJ, because I'm also the SPJ Diversity and Inclusion Committee Chair. And I would love to talk to many of you authors, because we also have a video series called Words of Wisdom. And you guys have a lot of wisdom. All right,
Okay.
and Happy
Thank
New
you,
Year.
Rebecca.
Happy 2021.
Happy, happy, happy. Okay. Anyone else who has not gone yet?
Richard.
Clarence.
Yes.
Okay, come on, Clarence.
Hoping to hear me. Well, I'm Clarence Page, a syndicated columnist for the Chicago Tribune, and it only took me 45 minutes to figure out how to work Facebook Live. So I'm getting better.
And your books.
Sorry?
Your books.
About my books?
Yes.
Much too rare. At least in my opinion. No, I wrote a book back in the mid 90s showing my color essays on race and identity. And I think it's about time to write another one on that, Richard, to update it. I mean, I talked about such great breakthroughs by these newcomers, Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan. So a lot has happened since then.
Yeah.
In any case, is
that the Strand bookstore on your hoodie there?
As a matter of fact, yes. I hope it's not a collector's item already.
About that.
In any case, thank you. I just wanted to say hi.
Like miles and miles of books, everybody.
Wait, can I give a shout out to Clarence before he goes away? You sounded like you were leaving.
No, I'm here. I'm just humbled by all the talent around me.
Is an endorsement from Clarence Page. Oh my God, thank you so much. Can I read it? It's real quick.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Karen Gray Houston, for your insightful and inspiring visit with the true heroes of the civil rights movement, the ordinary citizens who stood up at great risk to bringing the injustice of Jim Crow segregation to an end so that all Americans can go forward. I thank you for saying those things. I love you, Clarence Page. I want to say a public thank you.
Thank you. Let's give a shout out to all the blurb writers out there. You know, it's really harder to write a blurb if you really mean it, right?
Especially when he's so busy. I was like, oh, I hate to ask, but could you please?
Very well. Very good. Very good. That's about networking, like I say. All right. Who else hasn't gone yet?
Hey, Richard.
Yeah. Benita Bing, yes.
Hi, I'm Bonita Bing. I am the president of the Exposure Group, African American Photographers Association, located here in Washington, D.C. And I'm also owner of the Talbert and Bing studios here, located in Northeast Washington by Brooklyn, near Catholic University. So if you need headshots, portraits, whatever type of photography, we're here to serve you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Hi there.
Richard, it's Bill Mitchell.
Bill.
I'm the new publisher of the National Catholic Reporter and also a new board member of Journal-isms. Glad to be here. Previously at Pointer, the Free Press in Detroit, the Mercury News, Time, and you can tell I did have trouble holding a job a few other places. Good to be here.
All right, very good.
Hi
Dawn
there.
Garcia, have you gone yet?
No, I haven't. Hi, Richard. And this is a wonderful gathering of 75 plus people that a number of you I know. It's great to see you and look forward to meeting other ones I don't know. I'm Dawn Garcia. I'm the director of the John S. Knight Journalism Fellowships at Stanford University. And we're a program that supports diverse journalists from around the world to help create solutions to journalism's most urgent problems. And we coach journalists and writers to be great leaders. And a number of things that I end up doing is people end up wanting to write books who have been had great careers in journalism. So I'm curious to hear more about all this. And also, my husband's also publishing a book, so I'm looking for more tips on that as well.
Great. Thanks. Let's see who else hasn't.
I'll go, Marita. This is
you made it.
Yeah, I was trying to get on Facebook, so
Right.
Clarence and I similarly were.
Very good, very good.
Facebook route. Hi, I'm Marita Coley. I'm president of Multicultural Media, Telecom, and Internet Council. And our founder, David Honig, is actually a new member of the Journal-isms board, so we look forward to strengthening our relationship. I was so excited to see that Faith
Childs and a couple of the panelists talking about writers and journalism. I started my career in journalism at the Detroit News, but then ended up going to law school. And I think Faith might have been at Georgetown. Was Faith at Georgetown? I think she was a lawyer at Georgetown. Anyway, I look forward in particular to hearing about the intersection of authors and journalism. Oh, and I did publish a self-published book I've had a couple self-published books, but this one is so exciting because with my niece, who is using it in her portfolio to get into colleges. So we're excited that it seems to be going well. She's got accepted in a number of colleges and she's using our book as part of her portfolio.
Okay, great. Thank you. All
Hi,
right,
Richard.
Yes.
Hi. I'm not on video because it's 11 o'clock in the morning in LA and I'm not quite up yet. My name is Paula Woods. I'm a member of the National Book Critics Circle. I review for the LA Times, as well as for Alta Online and other publications. I'm here because of Faith Childs. Faith and I have had a 30-year relationship. I've published with her and she placed for me I Hear a Symphony, Spook Spies and Private Eyes, as well as a series of crime novels that I wrote featuring an LAPD homicide detective.
Excellent. Okay. All right. I think we've got everybody. Oh, we didn't
No,
get Lynn?
I haven't
Oh, and we didn't get Carolyn. Okay. Lynn and
Hi.
Carolyn.
I'm Carolyn Lumsden. I'm the Vance Chair in Communication at Central Connecticut State University. Richard spoke to my class 2 weeks ago and invited me here. And I thank you. This has been wonderful. I worked in publishing 40 years ago at Random House. I was a copy editor. And I worked down the hall from Toni Morrison and Errol McDonald. So thank you for including me. Love publishing.
Don't forget the Current.
I was at the Hartford Courant as the opinion editor for 26 years, and that's what I'm teaching my students to do now. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Carolyn. Okay, Lynn.
Lynn Adrian. I'm the director of the DC Graduate Capstone Program in Broadcast and Digital Journalism for the Newhouse School at Syracuse University. I'm also a board member for Journal-isms. I'm a long time, previous to that, I was a long time senior producer for network news, ABC, NBC, etc. One thing I will say about the publishing arm is that the book I don't know how to write is about the cost of being a journalist, especially being a Black journalist. That is the book that I would like to try to write, to talk to and collate the experiences of so many people who are walking this walk and what it's cost us.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the next segment. We're going to talk about, something for the people who work in newsrooms where the management isn't always so ready to give you time to write that book. And so we have Matt Pierce, who introduced themselves earlier, of the Guild, the News Guild, and he's the head of the unit at the LA Times, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what news organizations' policies are about book leave and what we can do about them. So, Matt.
Hey, Richard. Thank you so much. I just want to say once again, thank you for letting me come speak to your group. Journalists are important contributors to our country's literary life. And one of our goals as a union is to fight for environments where journalists can build on their work as staff writers and continue to produce books that, are going to enrich the social life of our communities. LA Times is a good example of this. Some of the bigger name projects that have come out of LA Times over the last decade or two have included Enrique's Journey by Sonia Nazaro, Ghetto Side by Jill Leovi, Soloist by Steve Lopez, Dreamland by Sam Quinones. Each of these books emerged out of their work as staff journalists for the newspaper. And from a labor perspective, there are some basic principles that can influence whether those kinds of projects can become reality. And that's the sort of thing that's really important to us because As many of you who have worked in newsrooms know, some companies are better than others. And really the details of, companies' policy on writing books, on book leave can really influence your ability to engage in that kind of creative work and influence the ability for that book to actually happen if you're someone who has a staff job in the newsroom. So I'll run through a couple of the basic principles that we have to deal with from a labor perspective. First one being copyright and intellectual property. If a news company has an overly aggressive copyright and IP policy as a condition of your employment, it can stop a writer's project from ever getting off the ground. So when we first launched our union at the LA Times, the way that it worked was that the policy would be set in the company's handbook. The company could change it any time. And in the years before we unionized, it had been slowly broadening its policies so that it captured potentially more of our creative work as journalists. So companies, of course, own the work that they pay you to produce under copyright law as part of work for hire. But this has become increasingly important in recent years, especially because a lot of media companies now look at IP for potential film development, podcast development, and book rights can get caught up in that. So one of the next important principles that we have to consider is that many newsrooms have strict policies about freelancing for competitors or entering outside business agreements, which can include getting in book deals. So that can give corporate and newsroom management veto power over your outside project, even if your newsroom isn't a stakeholder in the deal. It isn't something that's based on work that you've done there. Those types of policies can also influence whether your book happens. And then, of course, time off. It's hard to write a book. I haven't done it myself. I would love to someday. But that's also hard to write a book and also have a full-time job as a working journalist. I know that. So the ability to get book leave can be a critical part of making your project happen. So my pitch for unions here is that companies in the US have broad discretion over setting these types of policies for employees. And if a company's policy is overly strict, you as an individual employee may only have very limited bargaining power to get the rules changed on their own. You may also have situations in the newsroom where you have, you might have a few favorites in the newsroom who are able to kind of get their own projects approved on the side. But, if you're maybe not as popular or not as high profile in your newsroom, maybe the company doesn't let you get the same kind of creative freedom to do your projects. And I think one of our interests as a union is making sure that everybody gets equal treatment or at least equal access to that opportunity, especially for this big time creative work where up and coming journalists might be able to make a name for themselves by engaging in a really kind of deep and intense work of journalism that, you can do through a book form. And especially right now, it's in pretty much every media company's self-interest to gobble up as much intellectual property as possible, especially with streaming booming. I can tell you out here in LA in particular, a lot of stories, journalists frequently get approached for the film rights or derivative rights for their stories. So they don't own those. Those have to be negotiated by the company. But, if you develop a really good news story, for us, the LA Times may have paid us to do that really great investigation, or we did that really great feature and it turned into a really great news story. But, maybe that's the end of the road for that project. But for you as a journalist or a writer, you think that maybe there's some more there. Maybe this could be the basis of a book. Our concern would be that the company's policies are not so strict that potential copyright ownership issues couldn't block you from writing that book. And as journalists, most newsrooms are not really set up to have journalists just write books for the news company. So if you don't have the latitude and the policy to be able to engage in those kind of projects, those books just aren't going to happen. So a lot of what I think we have to fight for as labor movement, as a union in the news business, is to make sure that there is an equitable balance between management and the journalists so that policies aren't just set by one side of the table, and so they're not set in a way that prevents these books from ever coming forth. And I think that would be a real loss to our communities, because you know, as a lot of you have described right here in this very meeting, you have these brilliant book ideas, these really critical examinations of American culture that I think the public should see. And so I think it should be in all of our interest to try to make it as easy as possible for people to be able to write books.
Man, have you run across instances where the company wouldn't let somebody have book leave or try to prevent the book from coming to fruition?
Yeah, I mean, I will say at the LA Times in particular, it's not really the book specifically that has been as much of a problem. I think there's always a bit of a tension in the past from what I've encountered where we've had reporters who have gone really deep on their beats or who have worked on really big stories, and they've had their eye on a book. And I think sometimes there's a tension where, you know, the newsroom wants that journalist's attention to be focused on that story for the newspaper, which I think is fair. And then the journalist also wants to be able to develop that into a book afterward. And so that can have some natural tensions between, you know, if a journalist is requesting a bunch of time off on a really big beat, you know, the employer may not want to let them have that time off because they're like, hey, we still want you writing stories for the newspaper. Or, you know, hey, the stuff that you might discover while writing your book could actually be something that we, you know, want you to publish in the newspaper.
Is Bob Woodward listening? I wonder.
Yeah, and obviously, these are especially big questions at the really large, big prestigious newsrooms, New York Times, Washington Post, where a lot of the journalists at those sorts of places are going to be approached or be viable for these pretty ambitious book projects, and that can be in great tension with the management there because management want those people working, they want them creating, you know, exclusive for the Washington Post and the New York Times. And I'm sure many of you on this call have had, you know, your own experiences of those tensions. You know, and I haven't had that myself personally. I will tell you actually, the biggest tension that I've repeatedly run into at the LA Times is not about books, but about movie rights in particular. When we were targeting our contract, you know, the most important thing to us was the ability and the freedom for our journalists to be able to write books and at least, you know, have some sense that if they requested time off to write a book that they would get a fair consideration for that. We don't have like an entitlement to get time off to write books. We didn't win that in our contract. Would have been nice. We don't have it, but that consideration should at least be equitable, you know, with management not playing favorites, especially not if it's discriminatory, you know, based on race, gender, or other protected categories. That's one of the really basic bedrock protections that our contract gives. But yeah, no, if you write a really fantastic book that you want to turn into, or a story that you want to turn into a book, the big problem I can tell you is that your employer might be interested in turning that story into a movie instead, which, you know, would be nice. But if you're trying to bargain a deal to get that book published, that may conflict with the company's movie rights. And so they may have an active interest to come in and squash the deal that you want to make for yourself. So that was one of the biggest sticking points in our negotiations.
Gotcha. Okay, well, thanks, Matt. Any more questions from Matt can go right into the chat directly to him, and we'll get back after the segment is over. Now, Calvin Reed has been with Publishers Weekly for 35 years, as he mentioned, he's been there for a long time. And now we have our racial reckoning going on, and it's in the publishing industry. So I wanted Calvin to give us some background. In fact, there was a piece that Yvonne Roman put on Facebook. Why is the publishing industry so white? Calvin, why is the publishing industry so white?
Dare I say it, exclusionary hiring practices over the course of many, many decades. You know, look, this is, I wrote a story in 1994, which this will give you some idea of just how long I've been at Publishers Weekly, called Houses with No Doors. And it was essentially the publishing so white article that actually very recently, obviously the recent New York Times article, though I didn't use the kind of quantitative journalism they did. I wasn't able to go back over decades and count up every book and see who had published what. But, you know, if you worked in this industry any amount of time, nobody will dispute the notion that it's overwhelmingly white, and not just at the important editorial level, but throughout the business, marketing, design, the warehouse at every level. There is a dramatic dearth Of non-white ploys, there's a certain cyclical outrage over it. I've covered it in many ways, but in some ways, and I'm being an optimist here, the recent protests following the death of George Floyd, the powerful example of the Black Lives Matter movement, certainly had an impact on the book publishing industry. As we have seen, there's been a range of higher level appointments to publishing positions. Obviously, Dan Canopy was on here. Lisa Lucas, who was most recently the executive director of the National Book Foundation, which oversees the National Book Awards, has been a very dynamic and charismatic presence at the National Book Foundations. If you know Lisa, you know what I'm talking about. She is moving into mainstream publishing, though. She is taking over a storied imprint at Random House, Pantheon and Shocking Books. So I think we're in a moment where this maybe this will change. Maybe the words that we've heard about changing publishing will actually become fact. But one thing I do want to talk about, and this is kind of why I wrote a piece in August. There are a number of people, a number of organizations who have been working on this issue tirelessly for years, out of the view of, before the protests, with the support of the industry, without the support of the industry. So very quickly, let me just mention some of the people that I talked about in that story, as well as some new organizations that came on, in the mid, 2014 and on, who I think have made an important contribution to bringing non-white people into a very white profession. So let's start off with the Publishing Certificate Program. No, excuse me, I'm gonna hold on. With the New Press, which is an independent publishing house in New York City. They publish books on social justice across the board, was founded by Andre Schifrin. Beginning in 1992, when they were started, they have had an internship program. And one of the themes you will hear me talk about as I go through this list very, hopefully quickly, the need to establish a recruitment channel where young people are encouraged and to join publishing, to train for it and build careers. We need all of the high profile appointments we can get because this means we will get some commitment to diversity from the very top. But we also need to be able to recruit and to bring people into the industry. So the New Press has had an amazing program that it has conducted since its existence, since they were founded in 1992 by Andrew Shipton and Diane Wachtel, who continues to be an editorial director there now and oversee this program. They have brought scores of interns and brought them into the industry, trained them, hired them at the New Press themselves. So just a shout out to Diane Wachtel and Ellen Adler, who's the current publisher at New Press, and because they've been doing this work for years. In addition, the Publishing Certificate Program at the City College of New York. This was founded in 1997. Actually was co-founded by the wonderful novelist Walter Mosley, who kind of made it his kind of project, both in his time and in money. It's directed by David Unger, who was kind of the founding director. And more recently now his deputy assistant, which is Retha Powers. And it is a program that's staffed, its faculty is staffed by working book professionals. They teach, I think they have 5 basic courses, one of which has to be a paid internship. I will say one of the things that I hear from all of these programs consistently is the absolute need, particularly for Black and minority students, to have paid internships. Many of these students can't afford to only, just do an unpaid internship, which of course they can do, if it's college courses, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work well with bringing kids into this industry, or making publishers pay attention to you if your college degree isn't an Ivy League school or Stanford or something, or Denver or Columbia, which also have very well-regarded publishing education programs. But we have the certificate program here at City College. It was founded there for a reason, because it has a magnificently diverse student body. All students are encouraged and recruited to end, and they have done an amazing job over time. And you can look at some of my reporting to learn more about that. Very quickly, to go on quickly, more recent organizations. Obviously, I'm sure you've all heard of We Need Diverse Books. This has been an amazing publication. While their focus is on bringing more children's books that feature kids of color, characters of color, written by authors of color, they have also turned their sights on the professional ranks, on providing, helping publishers provide internships to get younger people trained and interested in the business. So a shout out to the We Need Diverse Books, but also I want to make sure we point out people of color in publishing. A more recent organization, I think We Need Diverse Books dates from about 2014. People of Color in Publishing dates from about 2017, started by an editor, now agent, Patrice Caldwell. And I should also mention Nicole Johnson, who's the executive director of We Need Diverse Books. People of Color in Publishing is really focused on hiring. And as Patrice told me in that story, really looking on professional development to helping to retain people who do get into publishing. And I find very often that they're the only person of color in the editorial meeting. And there's a whole range of stuff that goes around that. So that's a quick view, slice from 30,000 feet, I guess, of the book publishing industry and diversity. Once I said, when it comes to diversity in publishing, it's kind of bad news and maybe a little better news. Hopefully, we'll see a change in that. I know that at the Publishing Certificate Program, they have told me that since the Black Lives Matter movement started, they are seeing a different kind of attention to the program. Internships are coming. So fingers crossed, hard work, more hard work to come, but we can see some changes in the hiring practice. And really the key, this is a key industry in American culture and world culture. So
okay, thanks, Calvin. Thanks, appreciate that. Anything more, you can just always use the chat. Okay, Faith Childs.
Yeah, Boad.
Faith, can we hear you, see you?
Okay, I'm unmuted now.
Okay, good.
People have tried to reach me, but I've been paying attention to the discussion. So if they would like to sort of send a personal query, they can do so through email because it's impossible to listen at the same time. Calvin, that was brilliant, and thanks so much. That's absolutely true, all that he said. So I won't go over the same ground, but I would say basically that it's starting to make a difference and things are opening up in a really important way. I think also the hire that Dana just made of, I think her name is Mindy Marquez from
and she's on the call,
which is wonderful because it's also talking about moving it to a different part of the country. I mean, this is like someone from a different area of the country, sort of so that publishing is so located in New York, but we're sort of listening now to different voices from all over the place. I think also publishers are doing something by increasing the salaries, the starting salaries, because traditionally it's been very difficult for people without a private income or something else to take a job making very little money. I know the New Press does a great job. They did pay their interns as well. I served on that board with Andre and Diane and Ellen for years, hired Retha, who was my assistant from the Howard publishing course back when. Retha is now an editor at Holt. And there are a number of sort of smaller private initiatives that happen in the industry as well, because we've had to be our own sort of shape up agency, et cetera, for all
hey,
of
here's a question that's specifically from the journalists.
Yes.
How do they get an agent, and what do you do for them?
Touched on this, which is basically finding somebody who shares your view of what you're trying to write about. You need to go to someone who basically you can show your passion. If the person only does graphic novels and you're going to them with a sort of detailed biography, then that's not the person to go to.
Right.
Ask your friends also who've written books that are similar to the kind of book that you want to write, where they should be going. I want to make a couple of points about this. It's not just reading the manual to find out, it's making a serious query to the person, to the agent, to find out if it's indeed something that they would want to represent. See if you can reduce it to a one-page letter, because if you can do your pitch that way, you can attract someone. I mean, don't go to them with your indecision. Figure out really clearly what you want to write, the time for discussing sort of like how, the shape, etc., to get there. But everybody knows people on this panel have written books. Find out who their agent was, and also recognize, I think, make it topical. You know what I mean? She talked about having a section on marketing in your book. Who's going to buy your book? You know, a lot of people in this industry, believe it or not, are younger than we are. So you want to make a pitch to them so that they can see that you're relevant, so that you know, okay, it might be important to include the mother of a rapper in this constellation of people that we're having. You also might want to include how you intend to reach the various audiences that are out there and why your book has appeal across a broad spectrum. So you want to show that you're competent, that the book has legs, that it can sell, and that you are not just passionate about your subject, but that you understand the resources and where they are and how long it will take you to do that, that you are uniquely positioned to do this. That's really it. The other thing I'd like to say very quickly, because I'm trying not to waste your time, is this business of copyright is really important. Copyright is ownership. So if you give someone the copyright to your book, as university presses demand, that means they own that. You can't get that back. I mean, you can sort of go through some long legal process to get it back, but copyright is ownership. So it's really a dastardly thing when companies are asking for pieces of the IP, the intellectual property of writers. I say fight like a trapped rat to keep that. And that is a reason to have an agent. And if you look at leading writers, they do not have sharing agreements. I haven't seen their agreements, but I can guarantee you they do not have sharing agreements with respect to the copyright on their book. I say the same thing, notwithstanding what that contract that happened at the LA Times. I say the same thing with respect to film rights. I think that those rights belong solely to the author. You did the shoe leather, you know, butt sprung your pants, sitting in that chair, doing all that research. Keep those rights to the extent that you can and fight to do so. And if you're negotiating a new agreement with a new corporate entity, make as a part of that entity that any work that you do there will belong solely to you. I mean, people get these sorts of deals, I'm sure. The other thing I want to make a point of saying is that the biographies of the future, the research of the future, African-American, let's call it our cultural patrimony, all of that work comes from someone having built the archive. So for the woman who basically, excavated her uncle and her father's work with respect to the civil rights movement, nobody's going to know that as well as she and the people on the ground. So therefore, we need to be custodians of that, of our cultural patrimony. We need to sort of establish repositories of authors' works that are important so that when people who are half my age come along and want to know how the industry was shaped or whatever, that there is a repository for that stuff. That's also why it helps to have people in control who will know, oh, I can identify who Jacob Lawrence is. You know, we all have horror stories from the business about, Black books don't sell or whatever, Black people don't buy books. All of that is important for building up. That's why these stories are important. You need your voices out there so that you can say what it was like in the newsrooms. I'll never forget, there was a great interview by the late Gerald Fraser, C. Gerald Fraser, wrote one of the first reviews of Volunteer Slavery, a book I represented way back when, Jill Nelson's book. And the remarkable part was that he talked about not being able to go to the bathroom at the Washington Post when he got there, so many years ago. Southern newsroom black man. I thought that was brilliant and wonderful. But it's those sorts of stories that we wouldn't hear if he had not been the person to write that book. I would also say that the copyright retention, trying to use an agent to get the best agreement you possibly can, being passionate about your subject, making it limited and specific and showing why you're the best person to do it. Query and ask your friends who've written books, query and ask the big people who've written books. What did you do? How did you do it? Who helped you? All of that makes a difference. And show how you're uniquely positioned to go forward and do the book. Your mention in my biography, by the way, one last point, of Les Payne's book, May He Rest. That was remarkable, etc. Grateful for that. That's our second, by the way. Annette Gordon-Reed was the first with the Hemmingses of Monticello.
Oh, okay.
But it was Les Payne and Tamara Payne, his daughter.
Yes.
So I have to shout out to her as well.
Yes.
I did not want to neglect her
Yes.
in the bio. Okay, but
okay. Well, thanks so much, Faith.
Questions from anyone?
Yes.
Richard,
okay, going to move right on to Mindy.
Richard, before you move on,
yes.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I have known Faith for, I'm not going to say, but a while.
Yes.
And I worked with her on my book. As a number of people I think I've heard say that they've worked with her. The relationship was not just on the book. And so I want to say that people are talking about getting agents and trying to publish a book. Faith has become a friend of mine, even though we only did one book, that she did a remarkable job. The book, I didn't write it as well as it could have been written, but she has become a friend. And I think that what everybody who wants to write a book or who is thinking about writing a book needs to understand is you have to have relationships with people in this industry. And you have to have someone who can help you do the best that you can possibly do. And Faith may not be able to be the agent for everybody in this room, but you can find somebody like a Faith. That's the only way you're going to be able to have any success at doing something like this. You've got to have somebody that believes in what you're trying to do, understands that, shares your passion for it, and then will fight like that trapped rat to be able to make what you want to happen yes. for you. And yes. I just want to sort of give a shout out to Faith because over these number of days that we have known each other, she is just a remarkable person in terms of doing that kind of work. And she deserves a whole lot more credit, accolades, because she has done books like Annette Gordon-Reed's and like the Paynes and so many other, Paula Woods' books and so many other people that folks just don't recognize how invaluable somebody like Faith can be.
And may I add one other thing, Richard? In another world, Faith Childs would have her own imprint because she is just that knowledgeable and just has that level of respect in this industry.
All right.
And for anyone who's in this audience saying that they're looking for the next talent, they're looking for someone who can broker and move the culture ahead, this is the woman who can do it, and she needs to be doing it on a higher level.
Hear, hear. Well, that's great. That's great. Okay, got to move on. Mindy, are you there? Mindy Marquez.
I am here.
Okay,
yes.
good. She left the Miami Herald to help Dana Kennedy at the Simon & Schuster, and she's got her own thoughts about what needs to be done and what she'd like to see.
Yeah, so I'm going to obviously defer to Dana, to whom I'm grateful for, helping me shift careers after, like I said, 29 years at the Miami Herald. I have 1 week under my belt right now at Simon & Schuster, so I am learning about this amazing industry. But I will say that I really hope that what I bring to the table is a perspective from my many years working as a journalist in a really diverse part of the country and really working to have the coverage reflect this community, which is very, very diverse and very broad. And then when I speak to from the prism of, let's say, the Hispanic, Latino, Latinx community, people have learned the hard way as a result of the elections, that they talk about us as a monolith, but that in fact, and we know this in Miami, because we've had to know this in Miami, that we are a very diverse group of different people who each have different experiences and different stories to tell, and different different difficulties and whatnot that frame really not just the politics, but the way that we live and work in this country. And so that's just from the Hispanic prism, but quite frankly, again, in Miami, we don't just talk about, when you talk about the Black community or African American, doesn't really go far enough to really define what our community is, right? I mean, there are Haitians and Jamaicans and Trinidadians and Puerto Ricans and Cubans. And so it's a complex thing. And I hope that I'll be able to really find these different types of, new voices who can really talk about new experiences that I really think are part of the rich tapestry of this country, but are not really reflected broadly in what we're seeing right now. And so given my background, I'm really interested in immersive journalism, narrative nonfiction that marries deep reporting with exquisite narrative writing. And I'm also really interested in books that really might take a look back and others in a way to move forward and put into historical, into current day, take historical events, add dimension, give us new revelatory details, and help us to move forward. And so I think that's, I'm drawn to memoir and biography as well, but I think journalism books that really explore the diverse tapestry of this country is what I really hope to be able to, have on my portfolio by the end of, say, year one. So thanks to Dana.
All right, Dana.
Well, thanks to Mindy.
Now let me just explain that once Dana got there, she made it very clear that industry needs to be more diverse, and she was going to do her part. And one of her first actions was hiring Mindy.
Yes.
So tell us more.
I have admired Mindy and her work for years. We worked together at the Pulitzer Prize. As you may not know, Mindy is the current co-chair of the Pulitzer Prize Board.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So in addition to her deep journalism background, she also is a professional reader, because for almost a decade, Mindy has been in the boardroom selecting every single book for a Pulitzer Prize for nearly a decade in all categories.
Wow.
All the categories. So she knows good books. She knows how to, in that room, in the Pulitzer boardroom, you have to be able to articulate why a book should or should not win a Pulitzer Prize when you're presented with the finalists across all 5 categories: history, biography, general nonfiction, fiction, and poetry. And Mindy would often, I would watch her in those rooms, and she would wait until everybody spoke. And then it was like E.F. Hutton speaking when she spoke. And people have either won or lost Pulitzer Prizes who were finalists because of what Mindy said in that room.
Whoa.
That's how she reads, and that's how she analyzes books. And that was one of the reasons that I knew I wanted to reach out to her, in addition to her vast, journalism and management experience. So it makes me look good to hire Mindy. And I just want to very gently correct something that Sam Fullwood said, which is, you can find a faith child, you cannot. Faith is, oh my gosh, an icon in this industry, and is the best that there is. I'm hoping to do a lot of books with Faith. We recently talked about a book that Simon & Schuster ended up not publishing, but we have done many books with Faith, that I'm looking forward to doing many more. And Faith, Mindy's going to reach out to you. I know you all will do a lot of business together, but there is no comparable Faith in this industry. She is, she's the best.
And stand corrected, Dana.
All right, so I don't know what will be most useful to you all because we're nowhere in limited in time, but I made some notes. I want to give a little context to what I'm trying to do and what I want to do. I've been the publisher of Simon & Schuster for 4.5 months, and in that time, I've signed 4 authors of color, and they include Eugene Robinson, who's writing a memoir for us, Aaron Haynes, one of the founders of the 19th, Laura Coates from CNN, a federal prosecutor, who's writing a beautiful, very complex page-turning memoir about the push and pull between the decision she had to make as a federal prosecutor and her feelings as a Black woman with some of the people that she had to deal with in the criminal justice system. And Kimberly Crenshaw, the lawyer and civil rights advocate who is a law professor at UCLA and Columbia Law School, both. She works for both, so she's amazing. So that and hiring Mindy, we're just getting started, but those are some of the things I've done in 4.5 months. I want to speak a little bit to some of the things I'd like to do to help with the industry. Now, first of all, I have an opening right now for another editing position. I'm looking for, I would love to fill it with a person of color. And so if anyone knows folks in the publishing industry who have experience, who are open to and looking for positions, you can get in touch with me at dana.canedy, C-A-N-E-D-Y, at simonandschuster.com. It's Simon and spelled out, not ampersand. I want to speak about agents very briefly. I'm just trying to pack a lot in here.
Yes.
Like others, we don't accept unsolicited manuscripts. If I did that, that's all I would do 24 hours a day, except in the case of very special people like a Mr. Paul Delaney, who's here and who I owe a follow-up conversation to. Of course, Mr. Delaney comes calling you, you pick up the phone or you open his email and you read whatever he wants you to read, even if he's writing a coloring book. So there are exceptions to be made. But let me say something about agents. One, there is a book, A Guide to Literary Agents, that's updated every year that you can get. I also think in addition to reaching out to people you may know, if there are books that are what we call comps, comparable titles, almost everybody lists their agent in the acknowledgements. Go and look at the acknowledgements and see who the agent is and reach out to them and say, I noticed you represented so-and-so. I have a book I'd like for you to consider. Also, sometimes one of the best ways to get credibility with an agent is to have whatever subject you're interested in writing as a book, is to do a magazine article first on that same subject where write, a portion of what you want to say, and you can use that as the basis for your proposal, and will often get you in the door with a reputable publisher. Let's see.
Anita.
There are 2 things. There's a couple things I'm considering doing. Don't hold me to this one, but I've started to talk to folks in the company about doing it. I think I am going to have maybe try it as an experiment once and then maybe open it up to doing twice a year if it goes well, doing it maybe quarterly, is having the equivalent of open calls for book submissions for people who don't have agents. And I think that is one way to get some diversity in the door in terms of people who just haven't found a way yet to get an agent to be able to submit a manuscript without representation. It may take me it will take me into next year to set that up, but I'd like to do that at Simon & Schuster. Then I'd like to see us do that as an industry. Maybe even have some of my competitors come in and do something like that. There's enough work to go around for the reputable agents, and they can't possibly represent everybody. And there may be a tier of people right below someone, in terms of the scope of a book that someone like a Faith would take on, where we would say, I think there's something here, and we'd like to work with you to develop this. And I am interested as part of our outreach and expansion efforts in and looking at something like that as a way to diversify as well. So those are some of the things that I'm thinking about doing. But I do want to say that for anybody who really has an idea that they believe in, don't give up on it. you know, it may take you a long time. It may take you a while. Just stick to it. If you have an idea you believe in, and if you can find a way to talk about it in an interview on NPR or on TV, or as I said, in a magazine piece, that will help you to get attention and some publicity for it. I will say that it absolutely is the case that, and Faith knows this, that agents will talk about your marketing strategy or your social media reach in their pitches to us. But I will tell you personally at Simon Schuster, and I've said this to my staff, I look at that second. I don't care about that unless I care about what you're writing. I want to be moved by the book. So when I see the marketing strategy and the social media synopsis, I put it aside until I read the proposal, because I don't care if you have 5 million followers. If the book idea isn't well thought out, doesn't grab me and make me say Simon & Schuster has to publish this book, it doesn't matter to me what your marketing strategy is. If you have a marketing strategy, it can do 2 things for you. If we're on the bubble, if we're on the fence, it can help us get there in terms of representing you. It can also help you get a bigger advance. If we think, oh my gosh, not only does this person have a great idea, but they have a very well thought out marketing strategy, that may help you. But I am still, you know, it doesn't help me to publish a book that's going to go out to your 1 million followers if the New York Times and the Washington Post are going to say the book is horrible. And so I do really care about what you want to write about. And for people who have a book idea, you need to be able to think through not just what the idea is, but you need to be able to explain to me the arc of the story. Because there are lots of good ideas. Somebody could say, I want to do a book on, you know, the last month of the Trump administration, or I want to do a book on the evolution of the Black Lives Matter movement. Okay, explain that to me. What do you mean? Like that is a headline. As an old journalist, I think about headlines. That is a headline. But what is beyond the headline? Be able to explain to me the arc of the story, where you see it beginning, how it's going to evolve, and what your conclusion will be, and be able to tell me the takeaways from your book that you are hoping that the reader will get. That will get my attention. So I hope you found this useful. If we have time for a couple questions, I'd be happy to.
Yes, we do, please. Okay, who has questions? Or observations, based on what Dana has said.
I have a
Richard.
Okay,
Richard, this is John Yearwood. Hey, Richard, I was talking to
Yvonne.
Okay. I was talking to a VP at a publishing house in New York about a year ago, who she and I accidentally met on a train ride. And she was expressing some of the same concerns that have been expressed today about the dearth of people of color in the industry. And we were talking about a way to do that. And one of the things I introduced her to was to NABJ, and to see if there could be some kind of partnership between NABJ and the publishing industry. We started those conversations late last year, and then the pandemic came. I'd like to get Dana's take on how helpful organizations like NABJ, NAHJ, and others could be in helping with your work.
Well, you know what, NABJ, all the journalists of color organizations could be very critical to this. And I know they have author forums at the conventions. And I'm gonna tell a tale out of school because I'm so frustrated. Before I came to Simon & Schuster, I ran the Pulitzer Prizes for 3.5 years. And I proposed to NABJ that the publisher, that the Pulitzer Prizes would pay, I think it was $10,000 is what they charge for their sessions, that I would go and do a session on how you win a Pulitzer Prize, how you apply, what we look for, what makes you competitive. And they declined.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe it.
I couldn't either.
And so, you know, I would love to, as the publisher now, I'd love to do something with NABJ. And you know, I don't know how receptive they would, you know, the leadership would be there, but if they would, you know, I would absolutely do anything. Seminars on manuscripts. I mean, I could see us spending a half a day on publishing, because so many journalists either to supplement their income or because they have, you know, mostly because they have a big story to blow up after they break something or they've covered something for a while, do books, and we should be doing more of those. And also to do sessions on if you want to make the transition from, journalism to publishing. So if anybody has any clout with an ABJ, let them know. I'd be willing to do whatever they'd like us to do. I would still do that.
Dana, I know for a fact, I don't want to speak for Dorothy, but Dorothy was very, very interested. And there were some initial phone calls and emails, I know, that went between her and some publishing houses in New York. So I think we can certainly get her the message that that possibility is there.
Great. Richard, can I jump in here real quick? This is Rebecca.
Okay. Then we have Yvonne and then Paula.
So I'm directing this at Dana. First of all, Mindy, congratulations to you. Very proud to see a Latina in that position. Dana, thank you very much for inspiring us. I'm a former NHJ VP, and one of my good friends is now the president. We definitely would love to have the same talks that you want to have with NABJ.
Absolutely.
And I'm also the president-elect of SPJ now. Would love you to collaborate with us because, as a woman of color, as a Latina, I want to open doors at SPJ, which is predominantly white, but we're changing. So please, let's have the conversations. I think this is very inspiring. I think it's great to be able to have two powerful women that can open doors and don't just talk the talk, they're doing it. So thank you. Richard, thanks for the invite too.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Yvonne.
Hi, yes, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I want, this is a lot of great information and I really appreciate it. And I wanted to know if basically all of this information that people have been hearing applies to writers who want to write fiction, or if there's something different, some big aspect that's different if you're writing write fiction as opposed to nonfiction.
I don't think it matters. We publish fiction and nonfiction. We have a very robust fiction program, and we're looking for both. And in fact, as a journalist, I'm drawn to nonfiction, but I find it the most fun and exciting to read amazing pieces of fiction. And I'll tell you why. As it relates to fiction and nonfiction, I've been describing our industry this way. I think that whether you're talking about a news organization or a publishing company, first of all, we're too Northeast centric. And I maintain that is how both industries missed the appeal of the first Trump administration. It caught everybody surprised because, the industries are so insular and Northeast centric. So I think having someone like Mindy in Miami benefits the industry. I interviewed someone for another position who would be in Michigan, somebody in DC. Look, our editors have to come to New York. Post-COVID, Mindy will come once a month to meet with agents and authors and her colleagues. But having people live in the country, they're going to hear things. They're going to connect with regional authors. They'll, in a way that we won't do just being in New York. So that's number one. But as it relates to, I think, the books that gets published by and about us, the industries, both journalism and publishing, tends to look at us as, pun intended here, but bookends. The books about the kid who grew up in the projects and ended up at Harvard, or the kid who grew up in projects and ended up dead in the street, right? Where there are all these stories in the middle that need to be told in a grander way, in a bigger way. And so that's what I'm committed to do. I took a very bold, some would say controversial step when I came in, and I'm firmly behind it, which is we had the head, Don Davis, as many of you know, the head of our 37 Inc. imprint left to be the executive editor of Bon Appetit magazine. And her imprint focused on books of color by and about authors and by and about people of color, and I disbanded it. And the reason I did that is I was like, nope, I'm sending a clear section to mine. Now, Dawn deserved that imprint. It should have been called Dawn Davis Books. She was brilliant and wonderful and is welcome back at any time. But when she left, I was going to do this anyway and find a way to elevate her by dismantling that imprint. But when she left, it made it easier for me to do this because It just made it too easy for other editors to say, that's a 37 ink book. You know, give it to her. I want to hold all of my editors accountable for publishing what would have been considered 37 ink books. And I mean formally hold them accountable. They are expected to do those books too. Now, as I hire editors of color, I still want them to do exactly what 37 ink did, but those books should be under the Simon & Schuster umbrella. They're not different. They should be front and center core to Simon & Schuster and its mission, not separate. And so I'm going to hold my editors accountable for producing more of those books. We are not going to lose our mandate and our commitment to what 37 ink did, but now those books will say Simon & Schuster, and I think that reflects the importance of them to the core imprint.
All right. Okay, Marita.
Oh, sorry.
Marita Coley.
Lovely, and I'm so excited, Richard, that you have Dawn on here. And Dawn, I had two quick questions. One is, what is going on with Amistad Books? I'm a friend of Charles Harris, the late Charles Harris, who founded Amistad, that I understand is perhaps still an imprint of Simon & Schuster. And the second thing is, how does self-publishing fit into any of this? Is it worth it, or do you think, that you should just go straight with the book proposal to Simon & Schuster?
You're talking to Dana? To me, you said Dawn.
Dana, I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. So I don't know what's going on with Amistad. I really don't. But self-publishing, I have to say, is not regarded by the industry the same as publishing that is through a publishing house, in terms of, being able to get distribution and into retail channels, reviewed by some of the best reviewers. So that's a little trickier. There have been some self-published books that have been successful, but it's a much harder row to hoe. And let me say one thing. What I don't endorse in favor, and I've steered a lot of authors away from this, is those self-publishing deals where you end up paying a lot of money. Your publisher should be paying you for your content, not the other way around. If you're having to pay a ton of money to publish your book, be careful about what you're buying. We pay for content. That's what we do. And so you want to, if you can, find a publishing house that's going to pay you for your intellectual property.
Thank you.
Richard?
Barbara Reynolds.
Richard, I think Calvin was saying something. Calvin Reed wanted to say something.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Well, excuse me, I don't mean to cut anybody off. I just want to jump in. Amistad is actually an imprint at HarperCollins right now. It'll be celebrating its 35th anniversary next year, and I think there's some plans afoot to celebrate the press and Charles Harris, the pioneering, groundbreaking founder of Amistad.
Right.
The late Charles Harris. May I ask Dana a question?
Wait.
Oh, okay.
Let Barbara go first.
Okay, no, very sorry.
That's all right.
That's fine, no problem. Dana, I want to, first of all, this was a wonderful session.
Thank you.
I'm just enjoying it. I have 2 manuscripts now that I'm working on, and I wondered, is there room for this? One is about a Black robot. That's a novel. And the other one is a theological book on the end times. But I don't see a lot of us writing in those genres. So I was wondering, where would I fit? Or would I fit?
Yeah, everything fits. And I think really, so when we think about books, we think about what we call comps, which are titles that are comparable. To me, the best books are the ones that don't have comps. That's really new and different. And if the book is good, if the manuscript is well thought out, well written, it doesn't really matter what it is. It'll find a home. And so that's what I would say. Just, I would say just make sure, for those of you who have manuscripts, that you really show them to people, particularly those who don't have agents, that you really show them to people you trust and people who will be honest with you and say, I've had ideas where my agent has said to me, Dana, I really think that's a magazine piece, not a full manuscript, and why? Or, there were 2 books published like that last year, one was a bestseller and the other didn't do so well. And so you have to be realistic about what you have, and that it can be hard to hear and take when you're so enthusiastic and close to the content. But let me tell you what I did with my book. I hired a professional editor at the New York Times to edit it before I ever turned it into my publisher. And I said to her, I'm not paying you to tell me how good this is. Tell me what doesn't work. Tell me which chapters need to be taken out. Tell me what's too ambiguous, because I would rather have done that than to turn in the manuscript that I turned in, which was probably about a C+. And so as it was, because of that, I ended up turning in a manuscript that was probably a B+, and then my editor helped me make it what I hope folks consider an A.
All right.
I hope that's helpful.
Okay. Calvin, you wanted to go. Say. You're muted. You're muted.
Okay.
All right. Better? Okay. Okay. Anyway, sorry about that. Just a question for Dana. A pleasure to meet you. Calvin at PW. I'm curious about, I missed your first beginning of your remarks. Did you talk any about Simon & Schuster's role working with programs, like I mentioned, a publishing a certificate program in particular? I do like to flag them. I think they do extraordinary work in terms of making their students available to be trained. They're diverse, they're excited, they're passionate about books, and they need internships. So just curious if they're on your radar.
So I don't know about that one. I'm not sure whether Simon, we have a very robust internship program. I actually would like to hear more about that. I don't know yet all of the programs we have, but I'd like to know more about that one. And if you would email me the information on it. I ran the internship program at the New York Times for many, many, many years. I believe in mentorship and internships and sponsorship, which I think is different than mentorship, which is for another conversation. That's using your power to give people stretch assignments and bring them along for promotion, that kind of thing, as opposed to entry and mid-level mentorship, which is also useful. But I definitely believe in internships and all kind of apprenticeships, for sure. So if there's a program out there that you know of that we might not be aware of, let me know.
I will do. They can use the help. Particularly, they need mentorship. They need people to take their students and give them a little help. Whereas, if you're from the University of Chicago or something like that, maybe, people notice you.
Yeah, listen, when I ran the internship program at the Times, I never looked, I obviously did, but I never made a decision based on where someone went to college. That's irrelevant. I wanted to see that they had work ethic, that they had clips, that they interviewed well, and all of that. I went to the University of Kentucky. I was the first person in the history of either side of my family to go to college. If somebody had looked at me back then and said, well, she's not at Harvard, well, who knows what would have happened. So I don't care about that. And our programs really have people from all over the country, in big schools, small schools. So if you have a program that you think we should know about, again, just let me know.
I'll get in touch.
Okay, great. All right, anyone else? Questions?
Richard.
Okay, who's next?
do. Faith.
I do. Angela, yes.
Would you speak a little bit more to how important it is to have the book proposal and your first manuscript or chapters, whatever you submit, edited? A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to a publisher, they'll do all the editing.
So first of all, I want to say that I stand on Angela's shoulders. She came before me at the New York Times and fought some battles that I didn't have to fight because of her. And so Angela, I've always been really someone who's admired you a lot. Thank you for the work that you've done.
Thank you.
So, presenting your proposal and your manuscript is like going to a job interview. Would you show up in jeans without knowing much about the company you're interviewing with? You wouldn't. So when you're pitching your book, you've got to put your best foot forward. I'll just share this without naming names. I had an agent, a very well-known, very experienced agent, send me a proposal. It was so bad I couldn't believe it. But I thought, okay, wait, this is a well-known author and this is a well-known agent, so I'll take the meeting. I took a meeting. They didn't know what the book was. Well, to sign anybody. What am I supposed to do with that? So like anything else you are presenting as a professional, it should reflect your best thinking and your best self. That's it. You may only have one shot at that agent or that editor at a publishing house. You're competing. I'm telling you, 25 proposals a day, at least. You may have my attention for 20 minutes or an hour, depending on the proposal. And if you're presenting something where I don't know what to make of it, or I have a bunch of questions, that doesn't serve you well. You're trying to sell your book. You have to present the most comprehensive, well thought out and edited proposal you can.
Hear, hear. Okay, who's next?
The service if you don't. Because you're competing
next.
with people who are going to be presenting their material that way.
Absolutely.
Okay, Steve Gray.
Hi, Dana. Steve Gray, head of content at Facebook. It's great to be with you, and thanks so much for your insights. As a former business journalist, I always think about things through the lens of dollars and cents, and I'd love to sort of get your insights on how much does a basic book cost to actually produce. A couple years ago, when I first stepped my toe into sort of exploring a book deal, someone told me that it was like $50,000 at a base just to get your basic book out, but I don't know if that's true.
You mean for a publishing house to publish it, or for you to publish it?
No, for a publishing house like Simon & Schuster to publish.
You know what? It's all over the map, and frankly, it depends on the advance. If we're paying $2 million for an advance, which we do, or if we're paying $50,000 for an advance, which we do, it's a very different calculation, and it has to do with how many books we need to sell based on the advance. It has to do with how big the book is. It has to do with whether it's a 4-color production and has photos on the inside. So there isn't an easy answer for that. We have formulas for all of those scenarios. And when my editors present me with a book that they want to sell, they have to present me, this is something to know, they have to present 3 things. They have to present me with the proposal, 4 things, the proposal. I don't approve any sale without these 4 elements. A proposal, and or manuscript if you have the manuscript. We don't have to, in fiction, we want to see the whole manuscript. Nonfiction, we don't have to have the whole manuscript, but the proposal and or manuscript, their argument in writing to me about why they love this book and we have to have it. A P&L, profit and loss statement that shows us what we need to do to make money on that based on their recommendation for the how much we should pay for the book to the author, the advance, and comp titles. And comp titles that were published in the last 2 to 3 years. I take every acquisition that we make, I take all of that information and review it and make a decision.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else next?
I have a question.
Okay, Faith.
What I wanted to say is the same metrics apply when you're going to an agent.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
You basically don't pick up a manuscript or a proposal from your basement on yellowed paper and bring it to us to say, we would like to get this book published. If it's stale and it's stagnant and it doesn't reflect your best self and your best writing, how am I going to sell it to somebody who's only looking for your best writing? So I've sent people back to the drawing board any number of times. You people are storytellers. That's what you do. You create interest in what happens out there. So you know how to do this. And for those of you who are not going through the route that's the Hurston Writer or other writers groups, you can form writers groups yourself with people whom you know and trust, to have them read your proposal to tell you, this is really good. You need to move this chapter out of here, or the material that happens when you're, a teenager doesn't work. The other thing that I would say is really, really important in terms of making it the best that it could possibly be is really get an editor to take a long, hard look at it, in addition to your writers group and everything else. Because if somebody's going to pony up $30, because that's what a book costs these days, $25 to $30, if somebody's really going to pony up the $25 to $30, it's got to be polished.
That's exactly right.
You have to have the best possible material.
And I would add, thank you, Faith. I would add that even if the book is really well written and well thought out, there's another calculation that goes into it. Have there been 5 books published like this in the last 2 years? Is there room for another one? right?
Yeah,
Is the
absolutely.
niche too small? So somebody might be writing about, you know, something where the market is just too small. It may be a great idea. And is there a way to expand the appeal of that book? You know, sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes the answer is no.
And the market may be saturated, and
Right.
your expertise is not going to lift it beyond the heavy hitters who are already out there. It might be that you have to come up with another subject. And
We're
I
going
like
for
what
that
you
right
said
now
about
in real time. Everybody wants to write a book about the, we had many proposals over the last few weeks from people wanting to write a book about the end of the Trump presidency. The market's going to be saturated with those books over the next year.
Absolutely.
And that's where you have to think, even if your book is one of those, can I get first to market? Can I be one of the first out? If you can't, then you got to figure out what's going to set this apart from the other books. And by the way, even if you meet that hurdle, are people going to have Trump fatigue by the time this subject, no matter how good your book is? So you have to be kind of realistic about what you have. Along the same lines, we're starting to get a lot of proposals for people who want to do books about Jill Biden, same thing. And I'll give you a real live example of something we did. And here, there was a journalist who followed Kamala Harris for 20 years, right? So he was uniquely authoritative about her career. And one of my editors came to me and said, we want to do a book on Kamala. I was like, you know, there are going to be a lot of those. That's the other thing. I believe in being really innovative and breaking some molds. So I said to her, this is a journalist. It's a top journalist. He should be able to do this quickly. If he can do this book and we can get it out, if he can get this book to us completely done and not compromise on Simon & Schuster's criteria for excellence, in 6 weeks, I'll do it. Otherwise, no. And we did it. He did that book in 6 weeks, and now it's already been sold in, like, it doesn't even go on sale until next month. And it's already been sold in 8 countries, I think.
Who's the author?
I knew you were going to say that. I can't remember his name, but it's called Kamala's Way. And part of the reason that book sold around the world is because we're the first one with a Kamala's book, other than her own autobiography, obviously. Right. And so you have to, you know, look, there are going to be 3, 4, 5 other Kamala's books, but they're going to have to be different because people are only going to read 1 or 2 of those.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Karen Berry.
Okay, for Dana, my official request to be keynote speaker at the ASJA conference in April. It's going to be a virtual conference.
I have no idea what my April's going to look like. Did you send me a note about this?
Several.
Okay. And I promise you I'll look this week to see. I'm also working on a movie project that's taking up a lot of my time. So I just have no idea what my availability is.
I can send you dates. It's that would be 13th and I'm sorry, the 20th and 22nd is the section for books on the virtual.
I just don't know.
So I don't know what the keynote
with the dates, and I'll take a look at it.
All right, is Jaweed? Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Jaweed here? Sorry. Jaweed Kaleem? Okay. Melba Tolliver, did you introduce yourself yet? Melba? Okay. All right. Well, I saw her in the chat, and I just wanted to be sure that people knew that she was here, since she's an historic person in our business. So I'll wait till she.
I did not introduce myself.
Well, please do.
I was hiding out. Not really. I joined late, like someone else here. Actually, there's probably nobody here who's as old as I am, but the technology I sometimes find very daunting. Took me quite a while to get on, and so I just wanted to remain here, being informed and inspired by this banquet of just terrific people, speakers. My name's Melba Tolliver. I'm a writer. In March of 1967, I was a secretary at ABC News when a strike emptied all the anchor chairs and reporters' spots at the then 3 broadcast networks. At the time, ABC News had a program called News with the Woman's Touch. And I was a secretary for an ABC News executive. I was tapped to substitute for Marlene Sanders. And I've been writing a book, it seems like forever, Accidental Anchor Woman, My Life of Chance, Choice, and Change. And I'm living here in in Pennsylvania, near the Delaware River, and working on the book, letters to the editors, calling people in my birth state of Georgia, encouraging people to vote in this special US Senate election, and tuned into you guys for a very thrilling experience. Thank you, Richard, and
Excellent.
everyone.
Well, so glad that you're here. Question in the chat from Shirley Carswell. Lots of talk about the important role agents play. Question for the panel. How does one become an agent? Don't all talk at once now. Go on, Faith.
Okay. You know, as I said, I was a lawyer in 10 years before I became an agent. I really loved books, and I wanted to do something that kind of twinned my skills and my interest, because I read all the time. I read everything. Lots of novels, probably 4 to 5 books a week completely, in addition to the sort of swath of proposals and manuscripts that I have coming in. I think the best way to become an agent is to apprentice with someone who's generous, who gives you the time. I had that opportunity through a gentleman who's now dead. His name is Jed Mattis at ICM. Some of you may remember Jed. Jed introduced me to, it was actually Sheila Robinson, who's also dead. Sheila Robinson discovered Meryl Streep, if truth be told. This goes way back. Sheila Robinson to Jed Mattis to Charlotte Sheedy. And it was Charlotte who gave me the opportunity to work in her office. I said, I will work for nothing. I want to learn this business. I think I could be really good at this. And I have done that for any number of people who've come along, some of whom have decided they want to be agents. I have probably 25 assistants out in the world, and they're doing a variety of things: investment bankers, professors, a few agents, not many, but yeah, essentially the best way to get in is through some sort of internship where you learn the business.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, anyone else? We have some people who haven't said anything yet. As I said, we're here to network. All right, no more questions either?
I have a question.
Okay.
Dana, thanks for being here and where you are and who you are. Wonderful information for those of us who actually have a book out and who launched a book in the middle of a pandemic. Do you have any thoughts or advice? I mean, when our books came out, bookstores, libraries, museums, gift shops, all those things were closed. We've done a lot of hard work to get our books out there. I have a book trailer. How long should the book launch go? How long do your authors usually spend launching a book? Should we relaunch after everybody's vaccinated?
Yeah. So your book has already been published?
Yes, it came out in May.
And who's the publisher?
It's Lawrence Hill Books, an imprint of Chicago Review Press.
Okay, well, I don't know if they have a marketing and PR department or not, but if they do, okay, well, there's your answer. You need to sit down with them and have them help you come up with a plan. So you can't really relaunch once it's out there. You can sort of have a phase 2. So for now, I would say, you know, any sort of big book club chats that you can participate in, Zoom sessions, find out the book clubs you'd like to try to address, that kind of thing. Use your social media channels to get people to tweet and speak about your book. Try to have the publicity department line up some interviews with you. That's what you can do now, and that's what everybody is doing. We have had one of our biggest years ever, literally, at Simon & Schuster. And I, believe it or not, don't feel like much has been lost by people not being on the road. We have had, you know, authors do like radio interview blitzes all day long with different radio stations. They've done all kinds of online forums, but you know, we have the budget to do that. We have a whole marketing department and a whole PR department, and I have meetings with them, you know, weekly to talk about what are you doing with this book and what are you doing with that book, and there's a whole program laid out. And so hopefully your marketing and PR folks there have done that. If not, you should ask for that.
We're doing some of that, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great then. All right then, if we've accomplished what we came here to accomplish, that's great. We ran a little over, but we really squeezed. We really tried to squeeze a lot in, and I think we did. The video will be up shortly. I think it's yeah, it'll be up shortly and distributed to everybody who's on the call, as long as we have your email address, so that you can go over just all this torrent of information we've just heard. And meantime, happy holidays to all. Thanks, Dana.
Thank you all.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you very much.
And Faith and everyone else who was part of this, Karen, Wanda. This has been unparalleled as far as I know. So thank you once again. Happy holidays to all. And we'll be making an announcement about January shortly. So thanks again. I'm going to end the call and tell all your friends how wonderful it is and where the video will be available so that they can watch and see what they have to catch up on.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Richard. Take care.
Bye.
Okay. Bye, everybody.